are open now.
Meditating.
Yeah, it's unclear. It's
focusing.
He's certainly ready. Here's an Elvish Mystic from CVM. We'll see what Boswell has on turn number 1. It's a Mana Confluence and a Warden of the First Tree. Boswell, a big fan of Warden of the First Tree, has always been playing 4 copies in Obs on aggro.
We see a couple occasionally in some people's lists, but the full 4 really only in Boswell's list, and it feels like he has the full 4 every single time.
See what VanMeter has here for turn number 2. Keep in mind, and we mentioned this a couple of times over the course of this weekend, VanMeter's build of Green Red Dragons harkens back to his win at Syracuse with Courser of Crewfix and Dragon Lord Atarka going a little bit bigger, which puts him in a better position typically in the mirror match. Don't know how many times he's faced the Green Red Dragons mirror, but the version that Eric Rill won with last weekend with Rabble Master, Death Mist, Raptor, and of course Den Protector, they're very different decks.
Yes.
Even though they are still Green Red Dragon decks, they're taking different approaches.
Chris going all the way up to Dragon Lord Atarka, playing much more of a mid-range game. Eric Rill's build that he won with in Indianapolis last week, a Rabble Master aggressive deck.
Warden of the First Tree going to come to the red zone here. The follow-up for Boswell with his rather painful mana base is a Fleecemane Lion.
Costa doing business for Obs on aggro.
To VanMeter we go. Mountain is the draw for the turn. Does have a Thunderbreak Region at the ready. I wouldn't be surprised if that's what he deploys, and it is. So there is the 4/4 flyer for CVM. We head back to the Boz. The Boz will untap and take a draw step here. He does have a copy of Dromoka's Command in hand, and now he's got a Siege Rhino. Looks like an Urborg in hand as well, so mana doesn't appear to be too big of a problem at this point, though it is a little bit painful.
Some reasonable stuff to do with Dromoka's Command on this board. You can, for example, attack with the Fleecemane Lion, and if Chris tenders a block, you can put +1/+1 on it and fight the Elvish Mystic. Not a bad exchange there.
It looks like that's what he's going to try to offer up, it appears. I actually like this a little bit before even playing a land for the turn. If he plays a land, then Obs on Charm's on the radar.
Yep.
So I kind of like actually not playing the land first and just making this attack, and makes CVM think about things a little bit here.
It's possible Boswell's plan this turn is to cast Dromoka's Command regardless. If Chris blocks, fine, and if not, Boswell just puts a +1/+1 counter on his Fleecemane Lion and fights the Elvish Mystic.
Yeah. Chris will not block, it appears. And Boswell is going to cast Dromoka's Command. Looks like +1/+1 and kill that Elvish Mystic.
And I'm interested to see how much of Chris's inclination to race in this spot by not blocking is because of the mana base that Boswell has right now. He has Land of War Waste and Mana Confluence in play. It stands to reason that he's going to take a lot of points of damage over the course of the game just trying to cast his spells, and that makes Chris a little bit more inclined to be the aggressor.
Sands of Citadel could be the land, could be a temple too. Boswell thinking about that for a little while. It's clear that he had a land to play, just which one is better in this situation.
He's got an untapped land and Siege Rhino for next turn, so the scrying is a little bit more valuable down the line when he's looking for specific action. Also, the faster he can get that Sandstep Citadel into play, the sooner he can take fewer points of damage off the lands like Land of War Waste.
Courser of Crewfix was the draw, and boy, is that not a great one this turn.
Well, he is on a single forest and 2 mountains,
yeah,
so he has to play the land up in front.
Yep, and then he doesn't get to gain a life, and it's a mediocre blocker. I mean, I guess it checks Ward of the First Tree, but I don't even know if Chris has any other option this turn to play either. I also think that in order for him to play the Courser, I think he wants to do off of Mana Confluence instead of the fetch land, because the fetch land allows him to control his draw step with Courser on the battlefield. Looks like he's going to sacrifice the Wooded Foothills to get a forest and maybe play the Courser this turn, but it's an awkward turn all the way around.
Yeah. I think at this point, Chris is probably prioritizing his life total a little bit more highly than the flexibility with the Courser. So he's just going to sacrifice that so he has to tap Mana Confluence 1 less time.
Okay. See that top card here in just a moment for CVM.
And this sort of lines up with the logic that Chris displayed last turn by not blocking with the Thunderbreak region. He wants to turn this game into a race because he has Stormbreath Dragon in hand and because Boswell taking so much damage off of his lands.
That's what he's going to attempt to do. Boswell draws his card for the turn. He's got an Urborg to play. That's his land for the turn.
Urborg very helpful in trying to get this to be a little bit less painful.
Urborg could secretly be useful for Chris too. That Mana Confluence.
Yes, Though I think it's definitely going to be more helpful for Boswell
Without
here.
question. Without question. Looks like we got another Jamoka's command on the way. Warden of the first tree is going to get a counter. Fleece main line is going to could fight Courser, make him sacrifice enchantment. It's all the same, really.
Yeah.
Just get it off the battlefield. Get a pump here. Pretty healthy attack here from Boswell.
And I love this. Boswell using all the stuff that requires some investment up front, leaving himself with Siege Rhino in his hand, which is essentially a haste threat in this spot. Worst comes to worst, it's still 3 points of damage next turn. He's got 2 attackers that are representing at least 3 points of damage apiece. And so if Chris just goes Stormbreath Dragon and attack you, he can't do that, he dies.
Yep.
If he leaves them both back on defense, that's not really where you want to be.
Yep.
Just a very good use of resources here by Boswell.
There's Mana Confluence. Here's Stormbreath Dragon. Yeah, you saw Chris point at the Urborg. Says, I'm not taking damage from that. Now, here's the big question. Does he attack with both creatures or not?
I mean, if he attacks...
Or attacks with one creature. Excuse, can't attack with both.
If he attacks with a creature, he dies to nearly everything. He dies to Siege Rhino, and he dies to any removal spell.
Pumping the brakes isn't sexy, but I think it's the right play.
Chris is in a rock and a hard place because if you're in a spot, it's hard to believe you can win by attacking, and it's hard to believe you can win by blocking.
Yep. I think he's just going to pass the turn back. He will. I think this is the correct decision.
Yep.
Ignoring even what the cards are in Boswell's hand, I think this is the correct decision.
He can hang back and block, and he's still drawing a Crater's Claws if he can keep his board intact. Because he gets to attack, and Crater's Claws Boswell out.
Yep.
But if he attacks with anything that turn, he dies to... If Boswell's hand is If Boswell's hand is just lands, Chris wins the game. But otherwise, he's going to lose.
Yeah. There's just too much that can go wrong.
Right. Removable spell, a Siege Rhino.
Keep in mind right now, all of Boswell's creatures are 4/4s. Fleece main line has +1/+1 counter on it from Jamoka's command. And then one of the first tree has a +1/+1 counter from Jamoka's command, which makes it a 2/2. And then the activation of the first mode on War of the First Tree makes it into a 4/4, given the counter that's on it already. So 2 4/4s out there with the potential for so much more as here comes the Warden.
Can't attack with the Fleece main line because Stormbreath Dragon has protection from white, but he can offer up this attack. And Chris probably has to block in this spot. It would not make sense to leave them both back and then block with neither. And then Siege Rhino pulls Boswell out of range of Crater's Claws off the top. And presents him with 2 lethal attackers against 1 blocker for the following turn.
And here's the thing, if you're not attacking last turn with a dragon, then this turn you have to be blocking with one.
Right, and I think that Chris is not contemplating yes or no on the blocks. It's which creature am I blocking with? Because Thunderbreak Regent and Stormbreath Dragon both have relevant text boxes. Thunderbreak, because if Boswell has to use a removal spell at some point, that's an extra 3 points of damage. And if the removal spell in hand is Abzan Charm, well, Stormbreath Dragon is immune to that. So it's valuable to leave Stormbreath Dragon back.
He's going to block with Thunderbreak Regent. The 2 creatures will trade. Boswell, I believe he has to take 1 to cast this Siege Rhino, but then he'll gain 3 life.
Right. You can use Mana Confluence through the Urborg.
Yep.
Llanowar Waste for green. Good to go.
VanMeter will draw. It's a copy of Elvish Mystic. Not all that exciting. There's a Temple.
Well, on the table, he can still jump block out of this turn. Stormbreath Dragon can go in front of Siege Rhino. Elvish Mystic can block the Fleece main line.
That'll give him another turn.
And he's got Dragon Lord Atarka in hand.
That top card's going to go to the bottom. Here comes Elvish Mystic. Pass that turn back. No attack can be had, I can promise you that much.
Chris is still in the spot where if Boswell's hands all lands, he can still win the game. But he's probably dead to just about any spell.
Boswell will draw a card. Looks like it was a Warden of the First Tree to go along with Burmaz and Death Dealer in hand for Boswell. So Boswell's got some things he can dump out on the board after combat. No, Boswell does have a little bit to think about as far as what's in Chris's hand. Chris only has 1 card, but got to think about what that might be.
There's not a lot that can punish him for this attack.
For the Legacy Challenge.
There's some pretty obvious blocks there from Chris. He can't flip him around because of trample.
Yep.
Do not need a deck list. You can sign up for the Legacy Challenge at side events.
Stormbreath Dragon trying to stand tall. Let's see if Boswell wants to play post-combat. I think we'll probably see Bermaz and Death Dealer here.
Very important for Boswell to keep himself at 12 here. If he goes to 11, then Crater's Claws is a draw.
Fair enough.
Cannot take points of damage off of his lands.
I don't know if there's any way for him to do that. Yeah, he's counting.
Then I'm not casting anything if I'm in Boswell's spot. If I have to take a point of damage, I'm not casting it. You're still presenting lethal next turn. Chris is down to 1 card in hand. You don't have to do anything else other than present this board.
Oh, boy. There's Death Dealer. He's down to 11. Yep, if he draw one,
It's
two.
a huge gamble.
VanMeter can take a draw step here. Atarka in hand. Crater's Claws could get the job done. It's a Courser of Crewfix.
That was an enormous risk by Boswell, and I don't think for very much reward. I think the Bermaz puts him in a spot where Chris is down to 1 card in hand. He has 2 removal spells. All right, the next turn you deploy your stuff.
It's an interesting spot, though, right? Because if you don't play the Death Dealer and Chris draws 7th land and plays Atarka, he kills Siege Rhino or whatever, and then his board is better
Sure.
than Boswell. So I can understand kind of you're being pulled in 2 different directions.
No, that's fair. If you think that Dragon Lord Atarka is going to kill you in that spot, then it's probably better to play around land number 7 than it is to play around Crater's Claws.
Yep. Because what's going to happen there is with where Boswell's life total's at, he was at 12.
He's dead the following turn.
He's dead the following turn.
Dead the following
so-
turn. Fair enough.
Yeah, there's a little push-pull there. At the end of the day, Boswell gets out of the turn alive, and he's going to win game number 1 here over Chris VanMeter. Obs on aggro, up a game over Green Red Dragons, but a pretty tough last turn there for sure.
Right, and by putting Bermaz and Death Dealer on the table, that's 6 points of toughness. So there's no way for Boswell to do anything other than kill exactly 1 creature with Dragon Lord Atarka.
Yep.
And in that case, then I like Boswell's play. Then he's playing around land number 7 in Dragon Lord Atarka rather than Crater's Claws. With Chris stranded with 1 card in hand, reasonable chance that it's Dragon Lord Atarka as last card, which it was, and Boswell able to go on and win game 1.
All right, take a look at the sideboard. So we'll start with VanMeter. His 2 Magma Sprays, 2 Sides and Ruptures, 2 Roast, 2 Plummet. Bunch of one-ups here in Destructive Revelry, Rending Volley, Hornet Nest, Chandra Pyromaster, Xenagos the Reveler, Outpost Siege, and Twin Bolt.
The cheap removal is the most important thing here. I think the 2 copies of Roast will certainly come in, and I think the Hornet Nest comes in as well. I'm not really in the market for any of the Planeswalkers here. I'm not really in the market for the Plummets. Very little flying in Boswell's deck, so probably just the Roasts and his Hornet Nest.
Other side of things for Mr. Boswell.
4 copies of Thoughtseize, a God Willing, Hunt the Hunter, 3 copies of Self-Inflicted Wound, Ultimate Price, Valor Stance, Herald of Torment, Tassiger, the Golden Fang. I am in the market here for Valor Stance, Ultimate Price, and Self-Inflicted Wound as ways to answer Chris's various threats. And I can get behind Herald of Torment in this matchup as well, as Chris is reasonably equipped at but coming up the ground with some of his blockers. Also a way to get something up in the air and potentially trade with the Dragon.
To the Season 3 schedule we will go. And of course, our Modern Grand Prix in Charlotte was won by Michael Malone a couple of weeks ago with Elves. So congratulations to him yet again, qualifying for the Pro Tour. Our Open Series in Indianapolis was won by Eric Rill last week with Green Red Dragons. He's looking to go back-to-back, but it doesn't look likely to be the case. And, well, we'll crown a champion here in Baltimore soon enough.
Exactly. And then we take a couple weeks off for Magic Origins. Then we head to Chicago for the first time in Open Series history. After that, we go to Richmond, then a Legacy Open in Washington, D.C., a Senior Grand Prix in London, back to Charlotte for a Modern Open Series event, and then the Season 3 Invitational in New Jersey, Standard and Legacy as the Invitational formats, with a 2-day $20,000 Standard Open Series event, August 28th through the 30th.
Of course, if you do sign up for any of our main events during Season 3, you will get yourself the Tassiper playmat, the Golden Paw, with, of course, our favorite
Bananas the Slave Dog.
What a great dog he is, too.
But content looking.
Ish.
Anyhow, this is free with any entry to a Season 3 Open Series event. You get it at the door, not limited to the first X people to register. We don't mail it to you after the fact. No strings attached. Sign up for Season 3. Get this playmat.
Hang out with Bananas.
Hang out with Bananas, because Bananas looks like he could use a friend.
Game number 2 going to be underway here in just a moment between these two players. Andrew Boswell on your left, Chris VanMeter on your right. The Boz, a player who loves obs on aggro, loves StarCraft too. Big fan, and can't forget about the pottery. The ceramics.
Works in ceramics as his full-time job. His brother Ian Duke, who actually has been in the booth for a couple Pro Tours.
That's not
is
his
a member.
brother. Reduke's brother.
Excuse me, Reduke's brother. Ian Duke, all from Sugarloaf, New York.
Yes.
Taught him how to play Magic, and a big fan of StarCraft too.
6 Open Series top 8s, 2 Grand Prix top 8s as well here for the Boz. 31 years old from Sugarloaf, New York. What it doesn't mention, there should be probably an info about the sleeves and his record with and without, but we'll work on that. Also, I don't know who took that picture, but the coat, that picture's a lie.
It's deceptive.
That picture is a lie. There should be a picture with no sleeves on. Now, the hat is accurate.
Yeah, always has the black Nike hat on.
Yeah, but that picture is a lie.
So going back to Boswell's play there, also is really sharp because he can't beat, there's a couple permutations of what the hand could be there at the end. There's, with the draw set that Chris has, it could be 6 lands in Crater's Claws, it could be 7 lands in Crater's Claws, it could be 7 lands in Dragon Lord Atarka. Those are the permutations he really cares about.
Okay.
There's nothing he can do about 7th land in Crater's Claws. He dies no matter what.
That's true.
So he's only playing around 6 lands and Crater's Claws if he decides to stay at 12. And he's not playing around Dragon Lord Atarka at all. So Boswell's playing around 2 of the 3 permutations there by taking the point damage and getting the extra creature in play. So that was a heads-up play.
Okay. Here's some Thoughtseize from Boswell. You see the hand here for VanMeter. Dragon Lord Atarka, a Thunderbreak Region, a Crater's Claws, a Sylvan Caryatid, and a Temple of Abandon. A Forest and an Elvish Mystic is how CVM started things this game.
Very solid hand. Some mana acceleration, removal spell, something to do in the mid-game, and something late to play towards.
So what Boswell wants to select here with the Thoughtseize. It was a painful one off of a Mana Confluence. But you can really tell the differences between this build of Dragons and the one that Rill played last weekend. For example, for Rill, that Caryatid would be a Rattleclaw Mystic, and he'd be taking a much more aggressive approach.
Yes. But in this kind of matchup, I would value the stability of the mana quite a bit, as the big payoffs here are so potent.
Looks like Thunderbreak Region will be the selection here. And we're going to head back VanMeter's way. He'll take a draw step. Picked up a copy of Wooded Foothills. I think we'll have a Caryatid on the way here in just a moment, but he will start off with a copy of Temple of Abandon. Top card very quickly goes to the bottom there for CVM. There is your Caryatid. Pass the turn back over to Boswell. Boswell will take a draw step. He's got another Thoughtseize in hand, just drew a Plains. You like Thoughtseize in this matchup?
I think it's fine. You know, it's a little bit better against Chris because he's playing a much slower build. He's not taxing Andrew's life total in quite the same way. He is much closer to a ramp strategy than he is to a red-green beatdown deck. So it does come with some risks. Bad top deck late. And, of course, Boswell's life total is not free in this matchup. Chris is attacking him, and he has access to Crater's Claws. But I think Thoughtseize is fine.
Okay. Boswell going to sacrifice the Windswept Teeth, get himself a basic forest. We'll see what comes next here for Andrew. It'll be a Rashasha Death Dealer. He'll have to take 1 to cast. So he's already down to 15. It's turn 2.
Again, the cost of doing business.
Yep. To VanMeter. It's time for him to take a draw.
You want to be able to cast Thoughtseize on turn 1 and Fleece Main Lion on turn 2? Well, you got to do this.
Yeah, it's not free. It'll be a Draconic Roar to take care of the Death Dealer, revealing Dragon Lord Atarka. The land for the turn was Wooded Foothills. We'll see an attack with an Elvish Mystic. All of a sudden, Boswell's down to 11. Let me pass the turn back Boswell's way in just a moment here, will Chris?
Again, the life points are not free on Boswell's side of the table here. Crater's Claws is the leftover too.
Yeah, really anything but free. Landmore wastes the draw. You know, Chris able to find a Stormbreath Dragon here. All of a sudden, this game might be out of reach for Boswell. It'll certainly put a real onus on finding a Siege Rhino. Basic Plains in hand here for Boswell as well. Also a copy of Anafenza the Foremost. Looks like he's going to start with the Plains. Might see the Thoughtseize, but looks like he wants to get the 4/4 on the table.
He knows about Dragon Lord Atarka. He can afford to Thoughtseize that when Chris has 6 mana in play. And right now he just needs to get some pressure going.
Temple of Abandon here, the draw for VanMeter.
Now, if Chris plays Temple of Abandon, I assure you we're going to see either a Thoughtseize next turn or a removal spell cast on some piece of mana.
VanMeter going to start by sacrificing that Wooded Foothills and getting a mountain. We'll see what's next after that. I'm also curious to see how Chris wants to use the Crater's Claws here.
At 19 versus Boswell at 10, I'm not casting it right now.
No interest on maybe killing Anafenza?
No, not at this stage of the game. You can afford to take some hits here. In case that Dragon Lord Atarka just gets killed or Thoughtseized away, I want to have a backup plan. And if you Crater's Claws and Anafenza here, and then Dragon Lord Atarka gets hit with Hero's Downfall or gets tagged with a Thoughtseize, then you got nothing.
Okay. Long scry here for the VanMeter. Unclear, but it looks like it's going to the bottom. He's going to Crater's Claws away. That Anafenza. He's a little scared of that 4/4. We'll see if this ends up working. Clearly a play that you disagree with.
Well, it depends what's on top of his deck. There's a scry mixed in
he
here.
put it to the bottom.
But,
top card's a mystery.
Then yeah, at 19 to 10, I'm sitting on that, I think.
Here comes your Thoughtseize.
Your pairings for round 5 are going up outside and also online.
The follow-up looks like it's going to be a Warden of the first tree, and it is. There's Llanowar Waste. Pass the turn back. VanMeter will untap. He's at the mercy of the top of his deck. We'll see what it is. It's just a Rugged Highlands. He's got to play that. He'll go up to 20. Now Dragon Lord Atarka's alive draw. Only one left in the deck, however. Boswell will take a draw.
And as we've seen him do so many times, this may be a match where Boswell's going all the way up with Warden.
Yeah, we've seen it before. Here comes Boswell with the Warden. The follow-up is Fleece Mane Lion. And it looks like Boswell will just be passing the turn back here in just a moment. Dromoka's Command, last card in hand. To VanMeter we go. That second mode on the Warden could be a big one here. Lifelink is pretty nice right now.
It's a huge deal. I mean, one of the cards that is a biggest concern right now to Boswell is Crater's Claws. He's going to be able to pull himself out of range of that.
Yeah, and he's got Crater's Claws covered a couple different ways. One with the Dromoka's Command in hand. Two, of course, with the ability to gain that life with the Warden. So actually doing pretty good against that card.
Dromoka's Command may be needed for a creature somewhere down the line.
Sure.
There's no guarantee that he just gets to hold that for the whole game.
Here's an attack for 6.
Garrett, your draft is ready for you. Mitchell, Garrett, please report to the side event stage.
Is Boswell comfortable going to level 2 just yet? Looks like the answer is no. VanMeter will draw. He's drawn a couple of lands. He's drawn another one now. Here comes Elvis Mystic, feeling it. Boswell down to 6. VanMeter will pass the turn back. Four mana. Looks like Boz going to activate the Warden. It's going to go to level 2.
Speak to Liz, side event stage. John Corley, please come and see Liz.
Boswell will draw. Another copy of Dromoka's Command.
His hand right now just Dromoka's Commands and Ultimate Price.
Yep.
Pretty close to perfect.
50 minutes, you may begin.
Chris has got to find a Dragon Lord Atarka like now.
I suppose that was the incentive for Chris to use the Crater's Claws aggressively a few turns ago, was just out of respect for Dromoka's Command countering it somewhere down the line.
Got ourselves a little fight action here. Looks like a counter on the Ward, and Fleece Mane Lion's going to fight the Elvish Mystic. A little more life will be gained here for Boswell. And we'll see what ended up fighting, because the Warden does have lifelink there, so it's actually kind of incentivized to fight, I think.
Yes.
You get a little double lifelink action. Pass the turn back. VanMeter, take a draw step, another land. He'll show them both and extend the hand. Chris VanMeter is going to lose this match to Andrew Boswell. The Boswell take it down with his obs on aggro deck, 2-0. He moves on to 11-3 with 1 round left. You know, next round he'll be playing for top 8.
And those post-board thought seizes were great. I mean, it did come with some risk there. You know, he took a lot of damage early on in the game. There were a couple spots where Crater's Claws or Stormbird Dragon would have been a pretty huge draw, but